There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the first ever episode of this iteration of Bleav in Twins on the Bleav Network. I'm your host, Anders Pryor, joined by my analyst and good friend, Zac Tipton. Really excited to be here, really excited to start this project and this journey with you guys as we take you through the ins and outs and ups and downs and inside circles of the Minnesota Twins Baseball Club. For those of you who are big viewers of Bleav Network programming, you may recognize my name and my voice. I am the former host of the Catitude podcast, Villanova Basketball with Anders Pryor. I have jumped ships and I'm no longer a solo act. I now have a partner in crime, and I'm very happy and excited for it. It is all fitting and kind of full circle because Zac and I are former classmates at Villanova University, so we have no shortage of history. This has been the kind of project that him and I have wanted to do together for a very extended period of time, and now we're both extremely thrilled to be part of a network and a company that is giving us the opportunity and the backing to really do what we want to do. And we're really enthusiastic about making this a community podcast, giving you guys all that we have in terms of our social media presence, delivering content that you guys really want to see, content that's real and that you care about, from the analytics you want to see, the discussion points you want to see, big topics, small topics, prospects, game related stuff, headlines, everything that you would want. This is the space for it. And I hope that you guys kind of go through, as you go through all of your baseball content, view us as a big source of what you guys consume. So we're really happy to be here. Zac, this is a big one coming. This is a really cool moment for our friendship, and now as our relationship as official co-workers. How are you doing on this wonderful summer Wednesday?
I am doing amazing. Actually, I have a little bit of cold right now, but other than that, I'm doing absolutely amazing. This is a dream come true to be able to work with you again and reinvent our friendship in this way. And also, as somebody that is a lifelong Twins fan and somebody that has, followed the Twins all his life, to be able to actually have a podcast where I can specifically discuss the Twins is just amazing and something that I have wanted to do forever. And so to be able to do that with you, a friend of mine who I consider one of my best friends in the whole world, to be able to do that and, just live in this moment and actually get to put my thoughts into voices instead of just Twitter is awesome. So I'm very excited. And yes, I am. Let's start this thing and let's get this thing going. We're about to make this thing huge.
Yeah, there will be, we can promise moments where our Twitter feed is gonna be maybe a little bit too active at times once Zac starts logging on, but this is gonna. But we're really excited, and this is a really, I think Zac, you agree with me here, an appropriate time to start this show and to kind of have our first episode be less than 24 hours after the 6 p.m. Eastern time trade deadline, which I think is always, one of the, aside from the postseason, within the regular season, I think is one of the most, the 3 or 4 most look forward to days of the regular season is the trade deadline day. And it was really exciting for baseball fans. A lot of big names that maybe stayed put from some selling teams that maybe took some people by surprised, Luis Robert not getting moved, Garrett Crochet not getting moved, kind of being the two highlights there. Jack Flaherty kind of getting done really at the last minute. I Bleav the official announcement of the transaction came at 5:58. So a lot of exciting stuff, but this, kind of a pretty, not disappointing necessarily, but a pretty benign and underwhelming day for the Twins organization. And we're going to talk a bunch of baseball related stuff in terms of player specific things. But I know, Zach, that you wanted to kind of bring to light how this is sort of a problem, or not necessarily a problem, but that the sort of lack of transactions especially from yesterday, is kind of rooted in ownership. And I know that there's been a lot of reports today, and there is a report from The Athletic. I want to get the specific person to give them credit here.
Dan Hayes.
The Hayes, but yeah, released an appropriately, a strongly worded title. The Twins' failed trade deadline has roots in ownership's decision to slash payroll. And I know that you want to talk about the Pollard family and kind of before we mention any names of players, just kind of, setting the landscape and the root of why yesterday might not have been as exciting as many Twins fans were hoping.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. The Twins fans knew that this team was going to be one of the best teams you ever had, and they wanted to make a splash. They wanted to build this team what we needed. We had obvious needs in terms of left-handed relief pitching, maybe another starter, maybe an outfield depth piece. Like, those were three kind of things we really wanted to add. And all we got was one right-handed reliever that we'll talk about later, who I think, he has something, but we'll talk about him later. But the main reason is for this is 9 months ago, after we won our first playoff game in 18 years and had just won a series, and we were coming out of one of the best playoff runs we've really had in my lifetime, the Twins announced they'd be cutting payroll by $27 million, which took fans back a lot, because a lot of fans were like, our time is now, let's go get it. And now you're cutting payroll like $27 million, and we can't go after any big names. We had to really settle for smaller known guys, like trading Jorge Polanco for Desclafani and Topa, who haven't even played this season, trading for Manuel Margot instead of like re-signing Michael A. Taylor, doing stuff like that Twins fans really wanted us to do, but we couldn't do it because we just didn't have the money to do it. And so that came through again in the trade deadline, where we couldn't make a lot of the big splashes we wanted to do because our funding was so low that we couldn't go after any of those guys. And so, yeah, I mean, it really is unfortunate, because when you look at what other teams in the AL Central did, I mean, it was just unfortunate. We couldn't really do a lot. And so it really led to us not doing anything, and except for one minor move that kind of went under the radar because it was late and it got running a bunch of other trades. And so, it was really disappointing. But I think it also has to do with the fact that, a lot of the big sellers for us were in our division as well, specifically the Detroit Tigers and the White Sox were both in our division, and both were big sellers, and they made it very clear that they were going to ask for higher prices from in-division rivals. And so they were probably asking prices that were way too much for us to give. That probably included one of Brooks Lee, Walker Jenkins, or Manuel Rodriguez. I'm guessing we didn't want to get rid of any of those three guys. I'm pretty sure those three guys were probably pretty much untouchable for us.
Right.
And so it really came down to that. So I think there's a lot that went into it, but I think the ownership and just how badly the ownership has handled this season, and a lot of it's not their fault. Obviously, Bally Sports going bankrupt and that whole not really being able to work out a big TV deal has kind of limited their amount of money they're bringing in. because of the whole Valley Sports nonsense. But it still is unfortunate, and hopefully that gets resolved next year, and we can get back to kind of having a bigger payroll coming up.
You mentioned the phrase like, excuse me. Um, you had mentioned the phrase like how maybe not the phrase, but like how this is the best team that like they've had in a while. And I think, and I forget the exact wording that you use for this idea that I'm saying, but there is a sense of, you need to, like I think I usually said like understanding what they have right now. And like there's a sense of striking while the iron is hot that I think is a little missed. And, I've seen around other, baseball like spaces for the Twins and maybe for other teams that are going through similar experiences, that there's a sense of tone deafness from ownership. Um, and I understand that you can have a limited payroll, but still kind of come together to make some impactful moves, maybe not something to the scale of like if Robert did end up getting traded, like that was the team that he was going to go to. But even something like going out and getting Yandy Diaz, who didn't get moved, to a lot of people's surprise, that would have been, I think something that a lot of people would have been excited about. We're going to talk about some other players in division that I think would have been perfect fits for what the Twins were looking for. But even still, like, the Twins are one of these teams that has, like the Orioles and like the Dodgers and like the Pirates to a certain extent, where there are, or like the Red Sox, where they have these super deep and vast farm systems, and they're well positioned to take not the kind of spear end of it, but solid chunks of it to package together to go and get quality players to make that playoff push that we saw the Twins do last year, but take it a step further and still have multiple, 4 top 100 prospects, depending on who you're aiming for, but 3 to 4 top 100 prospects left over, which, so there are some teams that don't even have 2. So there is a sense of tone deaf and a little bit of a lack of urgency. Is that something that you're kind of feeling as well, when there's some multiple kind of routes to kind of?
I would also agree with that. I would say there is no benefits there. But then again, I would like to, in a little bit of a defense of the Twins as well in this one for staying quiet, is some of the asking prices were so high. Like, from what I heard is that the Twins were very much like their top target, and the one they were the most serious on getting was Yusei Kikuchi. That was their main target. And what Houston gave up for Yusei Kikuchi was absolutely insane, and I would not have wanted the Twins to give up more than that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I know another good thing they were kind of hoping for was, I think they were hoping for Jack Flaherty to go to the Yankees, because I think the Twins are pretty much interested in possibly getting Nestor Cortez if Flaherty had gone to the Yankees, because I think that was kind of the rumor, was if Flaherty had gone to the Yankees would have then traded Cortez to somebody.
Yeah.
I think the Twins are possibly looking at that as well. And obviously Flaherty then goes to the Dodgers, and that ruins that chance as well. So I think there's a bunch of things I think, could have gone wrong, but I like the fact that at least that they were not overselling for somebody. Like, weren't going to go out and get rid of one of their top 3 guys, and they weren't going to go trade, possibly Luke Keeschel and multiple other top 10 guys in order to, get a rental. So I'm really so that was that for me. So I'm okay that, like, as you kind of went around the trade deadline, let's say like even as you got closer to 6, even as I landed, I was on a plane yesterday, so as I landed, I was like, I'm glad the Twins stayed put and didn't mortgage their entire farm system on a rental with how the trade deadline was really setting up.
Yeah, no, I think you do want, the Trevor Richards trade, which is kind of really the only highlight, happened very early in the market, or it happened very early in kind of the like the 4-day like proper like bandwidth window for the trade deadline, like
And then
reaching
not really. It happened like 5 hours before the deadline.
the Trevor Richards trade.
Yeah, it happened yesterday, right? When it was while I was on the flight. I landed and we had made that trade.
Who am I thinking of then?
Maybe Trevor Richards trade.
Am I thinking of a different Blue Jays person?
Oh yeah, you might be thinking of a different Blue Jays person because Trevor Richards was traded like while I was on the flight yesterday coming home from Boston.
Right. Well, then I guess if that's a big blunder on my part, then I don't understand, because the big kind of theme there was how, if you look at what Tanner Scott went for and what like Jason Adam went for, people kind of viewed both of those, despite the talent, as like overpays. And so the kind of theme was like, okay, wow, like, literally we were saying, if this is what Jason Adam goes for, can you imagine what Tanner Scott's going to go for? And then it becomes literally the exact package that we were describing, what we think would happen, literally the same team.
Yeah.
So I thought, the market had to set itself in it. So given that, because the Adam trade happened before the Richards.
The Adam trade happened. Absolutely.
So it's kind of interesting to see how it, and then the Flaherty trade, when we saw that, we were all a little bit surprised by that in terms of how little they had to give up. Then we saw the report that the Yankees had something done, but then there was some injury concerns and some health concerns, and so the price came back down. Otherwise, I think the Flaherty probably would have gotten for some, not that level, but because he is a free agent after this year, but something that was a lower package than what we expected before knowing the health stuff.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of the Trevor Richards trade itself, because it is the one thing that happened, and so we do have to talk about it.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned how getting a lefty reliever was a particular need. Richards, a lot. If you look at his savant, and what you guys will notice is Zach and I are going to be using and referencing Baseball Savant a lot on this podcast, because we both love it and think that it's a great tool. A lot, Trevor Richards, Zach, you and I were talking before the show. He's really a 2-pitch pitcher. Doesn't have
and he's a righty too. He's a
righty as well, so he doesn't necessarily fit the specific, hand dominance need, but he's a 2-pitch pitcher. He's a changeup kind of specialist. There's a lot of movements. I believe the exact number that you saw, 9.6 inches of vertical break. So he is a specialist in that kind of sense. Fastball is a little slow, tops out at about 96. A lot of his advanced metrics are not super outstanding, and a lot of his chase numbers and strikeout numbers, swinging and miss numbers are pretty benign, in kind of the middle ground. His expected ERA and expected batting average are very high, with his expected batting average particularly coming in at the 92nd percentile at 202. And so what you'll see there is, I think, when you have someone where they're the kind of I was about to say what their fastball is as kind of like their as a as a way to say their main selling point, but that doesn't work here because we're talking about baseball. So that doesn't work here. But when you have someone whose kind of main selling point as a pitcher, is high movement, like big stuff pitches, there's some proneness there to, some sweet spot numbers kind of getting jammed up. Like if I see here, I don't think they show sweet spot numbers for pitchers, but they can get hit hard, and then that becomes even more exaggerated and saturated when there's only really two pitches that you throw, right? Like Clay Holmes has the tendency to get hit hard, but the bare minimum for him is that he can throw the sweeper, slider, and sinker. So he has some versatility there. So your kind of reaction to Richards and how his sort of unique repertoire can fit in to the Twins, and what your kind of reaction to how this sort of lack of luck that he is getting, kind of despite pitching in a Toronto kind of pitcher friendly ballpark. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really seem like the kind of guy. He doesn't really seem like the kind of guy the Twins usually go after. Like, to be honest, like the Twins' bullpen is guys that can throw 96, 97 plus mile an hour fastballs and then have good other pieces kind of sprinkled in. Like that's their bullpen, or a guy that has a hammer curve. That's not Richards. Richards is a guy that's a changeup fastball, two-step pitch. His numbers don't look great, but the xERA, the X batting average is hard to not look at and like. And I think that for that reason, it's kind of hard to get. You could kind of see there's a little potential there to possibly be something, but then again, you're kind of looking at it as like, if we were gonna get a reliever, I'd rather have gotten a lefty reliever, like bring in Andrew Chafin, say, or something like that, or a lefty reliever, give us that. But, I think he has something to do. I think I really can't see him being more than like a fifth, sixth inning or like a low leverage kind of guy for us. It's hard to really believe he'll be more than that because of how deep our bullpen is at this point. And how many guys we have that I think we really trust in those high leverage situations. However, that's starting to kind of go down a bit because you just had Brock Stewart to the IL. He was one of those guys we trusted in high leverage situations. He's now back on the 10-day IL, 15-day IL, I guess, for pitchers. And, Thielbar has not been his self this year. He's kind of starting to get a little bit of, I don't want to say washed, but like he's starting to get a little older in terms of like his pitching. And so he was a lefty that we kind of trusted in high leverage situations, and now we really don't trust him that much anymore. So I'm curious to see, maybe this guy can make a splash. And when we get Topa back, that'll be interesting to see if he can too. But for right now, I think it'll be interesting to see where we position him in the bullpen. I'm curious to see where he'll fall in the bullpen hierarchy. And me personally, I'd be very happy if he turns into like a sixth inning high leverage guy, like a sixth inning like not like a seventh, eighth, ninth inning high leverage guy, but like a sixth inning guy. We bring in like a 1-score game. That would be awesome. So I think for me, I'm hoping that's kind of what he turns into. But then again, we'll see. I have been impressed by how good our pitching staff has been at developing pitchers and turning relievers into pretty good relievers. I feel like we've done a good job of that. And so I'm curious to see what he'll become.
I just looked it up as an apology. I was thinking of Yimi Garcia.
Okay. Yeah.
That was who I was thinking of. He was an earlier trade. That was my mistake. I got them reversed. But it is going to be interesting. A lot of the times teams will will trade for bullpen pieces with a very specific goal in mind or kind of vision as to the kind of situation they want to be used in and the kinds of, where exactly innings wise they fit. and some do it just for just kind of pure sort of depth piece if the kind of foundation is already there. I feel like, like by and large, the Twins have a lot of kind of foundation set of, in terms of understanding what Duran is or understanding where like Jax fits and things like that. So I think what you said with like the 6th inning, that is a spot that I can see. It will be, and I am also now that what I can see here, there is only one lefty on the staff.
And it's Caleb Thielbar.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Caleb Thielbar is the only lefty we have. We had Thunderbird, but we sent him down eventually because he's just been struggling. But Thielbar is the only lefty on the staff, I believe. I don't think Topa's a lefty, so I'm pretty positive Topa's not a lefty. But
yeah, I am very. It's always interesting to kind of, the less versatility you have in terms of hand dominance. There's, only so much you can do kind of schematically as to how you kind of stretch out your bullpen over a series. So I'm very interested to see how Rocco kind of handles that now that there really aren't any more moves to be made.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
No, I would say like the only moves left to be made now is just called AAA guys that you possibly think could develop. And I think we did that already. We called up Randy Dobnak, who is a veteran for us. We finally called him back up after his 2-year stint, but he's not a lefty, he's a righty. But he'll be a mainly bullpen guy for us. So I'm excited to see him get the chance to pitch. I don't know when he'll get that chance, but I'm excited to see it. But yeah, I think that's really the only moves left we can make. But I'm curious to see how this team performs now. We should be getting fully healthy pretty soon. I think we get Carlos Correa back in a few days. We should get Justin Topa back in a few days, which would be his first time being on the roster since we got him in the Polanco trade. And then obviously now we have Stewart going back to the IL, but once we get him back, he'll be a huge piece for us come playoff time if he can figure out what is going on, because he did struggle in his time up. So I'm curious to see. It'll be interesting. But I do like where the Twins are at. And I think now it just comes down to, can we keep this production that we've had for so long now since the beginning of June? Can we keep that production going through August and September and hopefully October?
Yeah, I want to talk about excuse me, I had a Celsius little something out there. I want to talk about the AL Central and what their moves kind of were, because it's interesting, right? Like, I mean, the Central has 3 legitimate playoff contenders, and I actually kind of think that, kind of mixed feelings about this deadline is for every team in terms of excitement and like not volume of moves, but quality of moves. I thought personally that the Guardians deadline and the Royals deadline, particularly, were really good microcosms of what I think the Twins should have done and what I think a lot of Twins fans were hoping their deadline looked like in terms of acquisition. So you kind of start off with the Guardians, who got the big highlight there is Will Thomas, who,
Lane Thomas.
Sorry, no, Will Thomas, Lane Thomas. I got mixed because they send down Will Brennan to make room for him. So now they have a Fry, Quan, and Thomas outfield, as if they need more high average hitting outfielders. I think I like the move. It kind of fleshes out the identity of what that outfield sort of looks like. Had a finishing the year last year, 268. I think there's some slumpage in there. I do think that going into like the All-Star break last season, he was consistently in that 285 range, and does not strike out, does not whiff at all in terms of, looking at his metrics. Like, he does not swing and miss. And that is something that the
Guardians love.
That the Guardians analytics department and that their scouting department has been extremely consistent on. And so he just feels like it feels like a move the Guardians would make. And then you also add Alex Cobb, right? Like, McKenzie and Bieber kind of being in and out for the past couple years, not being as consistent there. A lot of the younger guys, whether that's, combination of, both injury and also just raw performance, but like Gavin Williams and Logan Allen and Tanner Bibby not taking that kind of collective, like, jump forward to the next step where all three of those guys have, sub 3.5s or sub 3.3s. And so they bring in Cobb to kind of stabilize it and to kind of bring a little bit of newer energy into Guardians rotation that has been, I think, really disappointing, despite the broader success of the Guardians as a whole. Zach, your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Guardians had a great deadline, which is kind of disappointing. Obviously, as a Twins fan, you don't want to see that. But, I think Lane Thomas is a good pickup. I think they give up a lot for him. I'm not going to say that. I think they gave up a lot for him. I think Al Clemmie and Rafael Ramirez is a pretty big duo to give up for Lane Thomas. But then again, the Guardians know what they have. They know they have a chance to go win this division. They know they have a chance to be a top seed in the American League. I mean, I think they're very. I don't know how close they are to the O's for the number one seed, but they're having an incredible season. And so they know what they can go after. So I'm not surprised there. The Cobb trade to me is interesting because he wasn't great before his injury, and he hasn't played like at all this year. So, he hasn't played at all this year, and he was okay for in 2023, but so I don't know. That's an interesting trade for me. I just don't really know what to expect when you're bringing in a 36-year-old who is just coming off an injury that he's missed almost the entire season for, and I don't even know when he's going to be back. I don't know if they know when he's going to be back. I actually don't know. I might actually look it up if he has any idea when he'll be back. But yeah. So I don't know. When he'll be back. But for the most part, I think I think they had a successful deadline. I think they did exactly what they needed to do in that deadline.
Yeah, no, it's like I was saying, just like two very small but identity consistent and impactful moves. I think that the Royals, theirs was maybe not better necessarily. I do think that the David Urseg,
Lucas Urseg, by the way, Lucas Urseg.
Right, Lucas Urseg. I'm probably also mixing up that another one with someone, Will Brennan and whatever. It's a mess. But I thought the Urseg acquisition was one of the more underrated ones of the entire deadline. You've heard, it's one of those things where like a lot of people say that. And so if a lot of people are saying that it's an underrated kind of move, then how underrated is it? But I mean, the velocity numbers are off the charts. His fastball tops out at 101. The whiff percentage, chase percentage, all firmly above average. Does not get hit hard at all. Keeps stuff in the ballpark that was helpful for him in Oakland, and it'll be even more helpful in Kauffman, which is one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in baseball, that a lot of the acquisitions that they got this year, like Lugo and Waka, kind of appear to be, benefiting from. This, to me, Urseg would have been a great move for the Twins, because if you're gonna go after a righty and kind of ignoring that specific move and just trying to go for as much fit as possible, he is a righty. He would have been perfect. Not only do I just think he's better collectively and having a better season, but also he kind of fits that more sort of like raw velocity kind of mold that the Twins bullpen kind of goes for, like what you're saying, where you have between fastballs, sinkers, cutters, multiple above average velocity pitches. So that to me would have been a much more appropriate move. So it's kind of sad to see him go to someone in division. And then, Lorenzen, I mean, that's kind of like a banking move, and it's sort of the Twins analytics department seeing tools there that have been successful on previous teams and kind of just hoping that the underwhelmingness of what he was doing with Texas kind of is turned around. Because even when he went from the Tigers to the Phillies last year, like if you look at a lot of the underlying stuff, nothing that he was doing was like particularly great, but the kind of consistency was there. And I am sort of guessing that kind of was the main sort of focus of that. Even though his ERA this year, it's over 4. Last year it finished at 3.81, so it's not that far off. But none of his strikeout numbers or chase numbers or velocity metrics are super exciting. But it's they've had success developing and goes to a fine ballpark. So your reaction to the Royals and your reaction to Urseg, who I think would have been a perfect fit for the Twins, going to in division.
Yeah, no, I think for me also, like, I look at Lucas Urseg, man, that guy's a beast. He's a stud. I think he'll succeed in Kansas City a lot. But I do think they give up, like I said, they gave their 4th and 18th prospects for him, which is a good amount to get rid of for a guy. But you get 5 years of control with him, so you get him for a very long time. So again, I would have happily done a move where we traded possibly like a Keishel and a Raya for Urseg. I would have happily done that. But then again, the Lorenzen trade to me, it doesn't really move the needle as much as it used to. I think he's a solid starter, but I think he's going to fit in as like a 4 or 5 guy for them, with how good their starters have been. And then, the Paul DeYoung trade, I just, that doesn't really move the needle for me a ton, but he's had a
I didn't even mention it. It's kind of a, like a depth piece. Like, he's gonna be Bollywood's backup basically at this point. But I think it's a solid move in terms of that, and we'll see. I think I like their moves better than I like the Guardians' moves for sure. But this 3-horse race, the AL Central, has been fantastic to watch so far this year. I think it's only going to get better from here. Very underrated storyline.
Absolutely.
The 3-team race. We'll talk about like your dream scenario, because for what let's say that you were, in the front office, right? So let's say, like, take me through some dream scenarios, because for me, I was someone before the season started. And again, you and I don't necessarily have to agree on any of this, but I was someone at the very beginning of the year when these conversations were kind of more active, were an advocate for the Twins being a potential trade partner for Pete Alonso, because you have 1 year only of control, so the package that you have to give up would not have been as gargantuan if you did it last deadline, where even those rumors were up there. And again, I think that would have been a good example of the Twins kind of being the perfect partner for that, in terms of they have multiple quality prospects that they could have given up and still have multiple top 30 guys left over. Obviously, that didn't really happen. Pete did end up getting moved, which I personally think is a mistake by the Mets, because I think that the asking price that those early numbers were pretty scary, especially
Yeah.
for Stearns. I thought that best case scenario, I am shocked that Yandy Diaz didn't get moved. Just in general, if you had told me a week ago that Yandy Diaz would have stayed put and Isaac Paredes would have gotten moved, I would have thought you were crazy. I thought that would have been the first, the reverse. I truthfully thought that it was realistic that both were going to go, but I thought that Yandy would have been another, real, immediately impactful, but also very realistic piece for the selling Rays. I would also, Urseg, that was a name. And then I also think that Luis Garcia from the Angels was kind of another kind of circled name. Those were sort of the big three. I thought that the starting rotation collectively didn't really need to be addressed. I think on the whole, it's been good. I kind of view that unit as a if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think kind of surrounding Durand with just ample infrastructure, I viewed was more important. So those are the three big guys. If for you, like, were there any super specific names where it's like, if we
There
get him,
were. For me, I was like, Taylor Ward from the Angels was a guy I was very interested in possibly going after. He was another guy I was kind of shocked didn't get traded this trade deadline. But Taylor Ward was a guy I was kind of interested in. I've already mentioned before, Andrew Chafin for me was a guy I really wanted. He was a lefty reliever that I thought we could get for a good bargain. I thought we could get him for at least less than a lot of other relievers went for, and I was kind of hoping we'd go for him. And then the third guy, and I said this before, and I'll say it again, another guy I really wanted was possibly a Jack Flaherty or a starter, because I do think we did need a fourth or fifth starter, a starter we could trust in the playoffs was specifically I was kind of hoping for, because we have three reliable playoff starters right now, in my opinion. And Simon was interesting, could get his way in that conversation, but I'm kind of worried we're going to eventually get a regression with him a little bit, to the point where I don't know if he'd be playoff ready. And so I kind of wanted to get one more playoff ready starter for us that I could trust. And so that's why I was kind of okay going for Flaherty. But for me, the main guys I was kind of looking for was Taylor Ward was an outfit I was going after. As I said, I think Luis Garcia was another guy. I think you already mentioned him, Luis Garcia, Andrew Chafin.
right.
And then one guy is like, if we wanted to sell the farm and go for it, was Tanner Scott. I know that we were taking a lot to get him. And as the day kind of progressed with the trade deadline, I kind of realized that I didn't want Tanner Scott anymore. But like before the trade deadline, Tanner Scott was the guy I was like, we have to get him. He's a lefty. He's going to be huge for us at this point. So Tanner Scott was the guy. But as the trade deadline progressed, I was like, yeah, let's not do that. Because obviously we would have had to give up probably one of Lee, Jenkins, or Rodriguez. And my guess is, because I'm guessing Jenkins is probably off the table, my guess is probably would have been Rodriguez. And I did not want to get rid of Rodriguez. I think he's going to be so special for us. Coming up.
Another one, I think definitely view starting pitching as more of a priority as I do. I think that if the one person that I would have thought of, no, he got traded very early in the year, much earlier along the lines, but Aaron Savale was another name from the Rays that I think could have been gotten at a pretty affordable price, kind of fitting that mold of, if I see here, I had his metrics pulled up here. Yes. So this year, has not been incredibly ideal. If you look at last year, like 2023, he has not hit the ball. The ball does not get hit hard off of him, and you can kind of allow the infield to sort of do their work. I think his style kind of, if you look at construction, right, like Target Center, and now he's with the Brewers and American Family, very similar constructions, very similar dimensions. Though I think he will pick it up. Right now he has not been great. I think that he, hit an early wall. I think he'll sort of work through that. That would have been another name. And I think that if he had not,
I don't think we would have targeted Aaron Savali personally. I don't think that would have been a guy we would have gotten. I don't think I really ever thought of Aaron Savali as a guy the Twins would target. I've heard Pete Alonso's name for sure, but then the Mets got really good, so that wasn't going to be a thing.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I think the main guy that I heard a lot of Twins fans wanting, and I specifically wanted, was Tanner Scott. That was the big one. And then I've also heard, Yusei Kikuchi was a guy a lot of Twins fans wanted as well. But again, the Astros overpaid by a lot to get Kikuchi. And that wasn't worth it for me.
That package was absurd. I'll take you through this exercise though. So if I'm doing this correctly off the top of my head, the Padres gave up their second, fourth, fifth, and 22nd prospect.
Yeah.
To get Scott. And so in converted to Twins, that would have been
Brooks Lee,
David Festa, Luke Keeschel, and Junior Severino.
Yeah. Or Andrew Cassetti, actually.
Or Andrew, was it 21st or 22nd?
I don't remember where the last one was. But either way, Junior Severino, I think, is probably where it would have ended up.
Right.
And that would have been way too much to get Scott. That would have been way, way too much.
Yeah. If you convert those,
which our conversions are a little different than the Padres because of their guys are so. Because we have one of the best. We have one of the best farm systems in baseball. That it would be a little bit hard to say that the Padres 2, 4, and 5s are the same as our 2, 4, and 5s. Mm-hmm. Because our 2, 4, and 5s are all top 100 prospects. So we have 6 guys in the top 100. So
if let me put it to you like similar, like would you have for Scott? Would you have done Keeschel, Culpepper, and Corey Lewis?
Ooh. I don't even know that. I probably would actually more. They probably would have wanted more than that, in my opinion. But I would probably not have done that. I would have probably done like a Keeschel, Raya, and like another smaller prospect, like a Keeschel, Raya, and a Junior Severino. Like if we did those 3, I probably would have done that. But I don't know. It is hard to really say.
Yeah. No, sure. The reliever market, I think, towards the end got a little bit too extreme, and
it got way too extreme. If we would have made the move earlier, I think we might be able to get a little cheaper deal for them.
Right. When you look at a lot of these like trade deadline, like power rankings or like the grading systems, like they don't just do it. Like that was like a misconception. A lot of people get confused. Like they don't just do it based off what you get. They get, they reward you if you're a seller for getting a lot in return, and they punish teams grade wise, not only for not getting stuff, but also for getting fleeced on things. So like for the Athletic, the Marlins got an A+ because of how much they were able to get for, and I believe they gave, I don't have it in front of me, but I think they gave the Padres like a C-. A team that gets Jason Adam and Tanner Scott should not be getting a C-, but just because of they have
6 or 7 of their top 15 prospects.
Yeah. So you have to punish them for that, even though they got significantly better. And their bullpen was like fine to begin with. Like it wasn't like a dire, drastic need for them. It was just kind of a bolstering.
Yeah.
So you have to contextualize it that way as well.
No, I do. Absolutely, I agree. But I think in the end, listen, am I upset the Twins didn't go after like a Jack Flaherty? Am I upset that they didn't do that? Absolutely. But looking at what the prices ended up being, I'm not as upset. Like I'm just not. And so for me personally, I think I'm gonna, rely on the fact that the Twins were not gonna give up their farm system and their really deep farm system to make a lot of moves. I'm gonna look at that as the positive thing to come out of that.
Yep.
Because I think our farm system is so good and it's only gonna continue to get better.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I'm at there.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to kind of wrap it up. Everything has a price, and some prices are too high, even if specific needs are not met. Man, Zac, what a great first episode.
It's been awesome.
It's been awesome. And guess what? This is a journey that we're gonna go on, that you're gonna go on with us. This show, because guess what? We're figuring this out. This is a show that is gonna develop, and it might look a little different every time, and we're gonna keep on finding new ways to make this exciting, so that it's not just us talking. Zac and I, we've come up with creative solutions for content in the past, and we're gonna keep doing that here. And we're also really excited to bring on guests and to bring on people in the Twins social media space. The really exciting possibility of bringing on journalists and Twins beat writers. Really cool possibilities down the road. And so, guys, gals, this has been Bleav in Twins with Zac Tipton and Anders Pryor, episode 1. Thank you for joining. Subscribe to the channel if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your listening content, keep tuned into, when we have stuff out. And we're gonna try and come on here and speak as much as we can. So really excited. Zac, do you have any fun send-off notes?
Not at all. Go Twins! Obviously, we're about to win our game versus the Mets here today. So go Twins there, and
Perfect.
Yeah, let's go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for making the Bleav Network a part of your sports media consumption experience. Thank you for making Zac and I a part of your day. We will see you guys very soon.